contribution to human physiology experiments aboard AX2. Please welcome Dr. Badr Shirah to share insights on these pioneering studies.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's truly my pleasure to be here with you today. And it's an honor to share with you our experience in the first mission sending Saudi astronauts to space. So this presentation will cover a few aspects. We will talk about the mission itself to give you an overview of this mission. Then we'll talk about space neuroscience, why we focused on this field. I'll give you an overview of the research we did on this mission and where we presented that in several conferences, and then the publication of our research. And we'll highlight some of the media coverage of the work, and then show you some of the impact of our research and subsequent research building upon our work, and then international recognition of our work, and finally, acknowledgement of the supporters and contributors. So let's begin with mission overview. As you know, the Axiom Mission 2 is the first ISS mission funded by the Saudi Space Agency. It was truly a groundbreaking mission for us in Saudi Arabia, and it had a lot of attention from everyone in the country. It's simply a 10-day mission to the International Space Station in low Earth orbit. In this mission, there was a focus on space neuroscience research and in biology research as well. This mission highlights the significance of short duration missions in testing new technologies and doing impactful research over a short period of time. And it had a lot of future directions for us in Saudi Arabia. Now that we know we can go to space, we can do research in space, and we can influence people about what we do in space. You can see this very unique crew of astronauts. It included several firsts. We have the first woman to command private space flight. This is Peggy Whitson. And the first woman from Saudi Arabia into space, Rayana Bernawi. And this is the inaugural voyage of Saudi astronauts to the ISS. And you can clearly see a unique age distribution here. You see 2 astronauts in their 30s and 2 astronauts in their 60s. And that's a unique group of astronauts where you can test gender, age impact. And you see different backgrounds also. You see 2 Saudis and 2 Americans. And here you can test the ethnic background impact on the astronauts. And finally, we have distinct genders. We have 2 males and 2 females. We can see the gender effect on these subjects. So it's a very unique crew. Now, space neuroscience, that's my favorite area within space medicine. This is a figure from NASA. There is the human brain is adapted to live and work on the Earth's gravity of 1G. Now, when it goes to space, it's exposed to many stressors: microgravity, radiation, hypercapnia, circadian rhythm disruptions, many stressors that affect the human brain. One specific condition that is really problematic in space is called the spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome, which is, in simple language, it's eye and brain changes during long-duration space flights. This is what was observed in NASA astronauts and several astronauts who've been to space for 6 months or longer. And what's causing it? Headward fluid shift that occurs in weightlessness. So basically, blood and CSF go upward in space because of microgravity, and that causes pressure on the brain and eyes. And this SANS problem occurs in about 70% of astronauts undergoing long-duration spaceflight. So you can clearly see that this is a challenge to astronauts going to the moon, Mars, and exploring deep space. So that's why we chose to focus on this problem. Now, in the next slide, which you will see soon, NASA published a document titled Moon to Mars Objectives. So when someone wants to design research, human research in space, we go to this document as a blueprint. So we want to see what are the major challenges and what are the major contributions we can make. So some of the things highlighted here include discovering new monitoring tools. So we want to be able to monitor what happens to the human body, to different parts of the human body, when they go to space, for short duration, for long duration, for low Earth orbit, for the moon, to the Mars. Anywhere you go, we want to be able to understand what happens to the human body. Now, after we read this document, we published this paper, a group of neurologists, neurosurgeons, and neuroscientists. We published this article it's a review article reviewing the impact of spaceflight on the human brain. We simply reviewed all what happens to the brain in previous studies, and we put the future directions, what we want to test in future missions. Then we published a specific piece of paper where we talked about a very promising device. It's called automated pupillometry. I will show it to you in the subsequent slides. But this shows you that we did the initial work that was the core for selecting our group to lead the research in the Saudi astronaut mission. Now, the research we did in this mission was very unique. We wanted to study the human brain in all levels, from the macro, large structural level to the deep molecular level. So we had two types of studies. One is called biosamples and one is called biodata. So in the biosamples, we wanted to look at the molecular levels. One specific study was looking at brain biomarkers. These are certain proteins found in the blood that tell you about the health and damage to the brain. And also, we wanted to look at telomere length dynamic. This is a very interesting area in research in space medicine because this was one of the major findings from the key NASA twins study. This was one of the lasting damage or lasting change that was observed in astronauts experiencing long-duration spaceflight. So we wanted to see whether this damage is there in short-duration spaceflight, like 10 days or no. And then we looked at the large structural levels. We used automated pupillometry, which looks at the pupils of the eyes, and from that we can infer intracranial pressure. And also optic nerve sheath ultrasound, also that's a technique where you look at the eye and you can tell about the intracranial pressure. EEG, electroencephalogram, and that tells you about electrical activity of the brain. That's a neurophysiological study. Also functional near infrared spectroscopy, which gives us information about cerebral perfusion or blood flow to the brain. So you can clearly see that these studies looked at the brain in all levels, from the molecular level to the large macrostructural level. In these interesting figures, you see the studies and the time points of data collection. And you can see that we kept the astronauts busy, pre-flight, during the flight, and then post-flight, doing data collections and collecting samples. The first part you see is pre-flight. So before flight, we asked them to do some measurements for baseline evaluation. And then in flight, we wanted to see what happens when they are exposed to microgravity. And then post-flight, and that's where we see recovery versus persistence of the damage. The first research was using this device, the MPI 300 pupillometer, and that's a technology used to assess intracranial pressure by looking at the pupil constriction of the eyes. And this device had a remarkable success. We are the first in the world to send this device to space. We've proven it to be successful, and we identified very interesting findings, including differences between the right and left eye, differences between men and women, where men are more affected, differences between older age and younger age. And it had very interesting findings that are discovered for the first time in the world. And if you're interested in reading the study, of course, this is the full published study, and if you scan this QR code, it will take you to the publication. And the second one was optic nerve sheath ultrasound. So what you see in the picture is the device on board the International Space Station, and this is a picture from NASA. So here we put water on the ultrasound probe, and then we put it on the eye. And from that, we can look at the optic nerve sheath, which changes during space flight. Previous studies looked at long duration. Now here, we wanted to fill the gap in the literature of what happens in short duration space flight. Are these 10 days flights safe, so we can all go to space for 10 days, or not, or they have persistent damage? Also, it showed us important findings to correlate with the automated pupillometry, because both are thought to infer intracranial pressure. And of course, this is the publication of this study. And the third study was using EEG. So you see, we used this novel portable EEG device. The entire technology is within this device, which is unlike what you see in hospitals, where it is large and it requires a table to move and a large hardware. This is a simple hardware, less than 2 kg, that astronauts apply on themselves. and it can measure EEG, continuous EEG monitoring, and it can tell you important information about the brain's electrical activity in response to the many stressors of spaceflight, microgravity, radiation, and others. And that's the publication of the EEG study. And then we used, the last device we used is the functional near-infrared spectroscopy. Also, this is the first time this device is used in space. That's one of the NASA's goals, to use this device, because it's also portable, lightweight. It gives important information about cerebral perfusion or blood delivery to the brain. And we were the first to send this device to space. And also, we had very promising results and remarkable success of this device. And that's the publication of the full study. And then we looked at the molecular level. And here we used a panel that examines 134 blood-based biomarkers that tell us about the impact of spaceflight on the human brain. And this is the first study in the world that examines this level of biomarkers in a human spaceflight. So here we identified some of the known stress markers that were seen in prior studies, like the NASA twin study, and also we identified novel ones, which are tested for the first time in this mission. For example, neuronal specific enolase, which is seen here in patients with neurological disorders like stroke. And that's the full publication. That's one of the best and most interesting studies. And finally, we looked at the telomere length. So as I mentioned, in the long duration mission with Scott Kelly and Mark Kelly, the NASA twins, upon return to Earth, there was a persistent change in telomere, which is thought to reflect aging. So we wanted to see whether the same effect happens after a short duration exposure to spaceflight. And we actually found that it's the same. So there is a lasting damage from short duration and also long duration spaceflight on telomere length. So, this was the first work we do from Saudi Arabia in spaceflight. We presented that in the US, and that's the first time there is a Saudi presentation on research and science. This is the American Society of Gravitational and Space Research meeting in Washington, D.C., in a session organized by Axiom Space, the company enabling us to do this research. This was another conference where we presented this work, is the International Astronautical Congress, and that's the largest space conference in the world. We had a panel, as you see in the top left, organized by the Saudi Space Agency, and it had also our astronaut Ali Al-Gurni with us, and Dr. Wajdan Al-Ahmadi from Alfaisal University, and Dr. Khalid Abu Khabar from King Faisal Specialist Hospital. We talked about this research, and it was the first time we tell the world about our work in space in the field of space medicine. And you see in the middle, that's the booth of the Saudi Space Agency. We displayed the devices and tools that we were the first to send to space. So that's our pioneering work, our pioneering contribution to the field of space medicine. Also, as part of our growing and expanding collaboration, we presented our research and our experience in Dubai, in Mohammed bin Rashid University of Medicine and Health Sciences. They are doing a lot of space medicine research and terrestrial analog type of research. So if anyone is interested, they're very welcoming and very collaborative. And it was a very nice experience visiting them and visiting their facilities and their center of space medicine. In terms of the publication, we wanted to have a historic achievement. We wanted to have something that lasts forever, that everyone can have as a souvenir of the publication of the first Saudi medical research in space. So we chose to collaborate with Elsevier, one of the most well-known publishers in the world, and publish all these studies as a peer-reviewed book. So if you scan this link, that will take you to Elsevier shop, and you can buy the book where you see all the research we did in the mission, with the mission overview and also future directions for future missions. And if you are from an academic organization, you can access this link through Science Direct, where you will find all the studies and you can access them free of charge through your institutional access. And we hope that this work and these publications contribute to the national aspiration and priority for research and development of building a global position for the kingdom in the field of space. Now, in terms of media coverage, this research received huge media coverage, unprecedented. You see international media talking about the mission, about sending Saudi astronauts, about building our position in the field of space. You'll see also in that infographic people talking about the research, the scientific contribution within that mission. And there were many videos and many tweets on the mission and videos to educate the public and to involve the general public as part of public outreach. And there were many infographics also, as you see, in Arabic, in the Arabic language. So we want to reach everybody, even those who are not medical specialists. And this is from our newly established entity, Research Development and Innovation Authority. They also highlighted the research studies we did, and each one, what's its goals and who's doing this. And this is also to involve the public, to let people know we can do research in space, and that's the research we chose to do in the first mission. And finally, there was a lot of media attention and media coverage, and everyone in Saudi Arabia knew about this work, and we were talking about it in television and in newspapers everywhere, and that inspired the whole generation of scientists, of students, to think of space as their new field of interest, their new field of study, their new field of research. In terms of impact, this was not only research that we did that will stop here. This is, you see, Jared Isaacman, who's now nominated to lead NASA. We sent this device that we sent for the first time with the Saudi astronauts again on the Polaris Dawn mission with SpaceX. This time we had a different research question. We wanted to take this research further. So in SpaceX, there was a group of researchers testing a garment that brings fluids downward. So we wanted to see whether this garment works by reducing intracranial pressure or not. So how do you measure that? You measure it with our device, which is the automated pupillometer. So now you take this research to the next level. Also, now we are developing our own scale, the first scale in the world that is specifically tailored for space. So now anyone who sends this device to space will use the Saudi-developed scale to measure the impact of whatever stressor on the brain of astronauts using automated pupillometer. So now you see that this research goes to the next level. It's not a one-time thing. Also, the other one is automated, is the functional near-infrared spectroscopy, and that's the logo up there you see is AX3. Our mission was AX2. So given the remarkable success of this device that we sent for the first time to space, another group of European investigators wanted to test this device. They said, well, you've proven that it works in space. We want to test it our own, and we want to do a different protocol and test a different thing. And now Axiom Space is interested in incorporating that as part of the routine physical examination for their astronauts. So you see that we tested something that was new, and now it can be part of the routine physical examination for every astronaut who goes to space. Also, as part of our growing contribution, we established a Space Innovation Lab in KAUST, and there we intended to do education and outreach activities. This is a picture from one of our courses there in KAUST. We involved many students and healthcare professionals who were interested in learning about the space environment and the impact of space flight on the human body and how to design their own research and their own payload. Also, as part of the public outreach activities, this was an event organized by Mawhiba in the garage where we inspired the talented students, the young talented students of Saudi Arabia. We shared with them our experience. We told them, look, now we can go to space, we can do research in space. You're next, you can do that. In terms of international recognition, this was our first work, but it received a lot of international recognition. This was an award by the International Astronautical Federation called the Emerging Space Leader. There's another award from Space Medical Association and also from the American Academy of Neurology. So you can see 3 top reputable institutions recognizing our work, as well as Forbes Middle East, who recognized 30 scientists. Finally, of course, I'd like to thank the organizations who helped us. First, the Saudi Space Agency. This would not have been possible without the support of the Saudi Space Agency and, of course, CST. NASA, who approved our study and enabled us to send this work to space. Axiom Space, who was the enabler of this research. Weill Cornell Medicine, who contributed to the molecular part of the study. And Elsevier for publishing our work. Of course, you see me only presenting, but behind this work, there was a huge team of local, regional, and international scientists who really helped a lot in this research, in designing the work, in conducting the study, in analyzing the results, and in writing the final papers and publishing the studies. So it's really a huge team effort. I'm grateful for this opportunity that enabled me to meet these people and work with them. And thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.